Thank you for watching this black belt information video. This is required viewing for brown belts and higher. If you are a child, please watch this with an adult, so you can pause the video and go get an adult. The video is about 40 minutes long. If you're not sure if you're young enough to need an adult to watch the video, basically, if you're the one paying for the exam, then you can watch this by yourself. But if you are not the one paying for the exam, then you need to have an adult or someone who is trying to help you pay for the exam watch this video with you. We only have black belt testing twice a year, once in June and once in December. For highly motivated students, I would say it's about 6 months from brown belt that you can test for your first black belt. Of course, current black belts should probably know the requirements from the past time they watched this video, but we still will require you to rewatch this video to prepare for the exam and be updated on new requirements if needed. Here's what we're going to go over in this video. We're going to go over Cookie One certification, which is the type of certification that you'll be receiving through World Martial Arts. Of course, the testing requirements. And then finally, black belt expectations and responsibilities. If you are a current black belt, you could probably stop watching after reviewing the testing requirements. However, if you're an adult and you notice that your black belt is not acting like a real black belt, then you should make them watch all the way through the entire video. So Cookie One certification. There are two major organizations that we are concerned with. One is Cookie One, which is the World Taekwondo headquarters in Korea, and they're responsible for issuing the black belt certification. This is international recognition, so no matter where you go, your black belt should be honored as long as you're going to another Cookie One school. You might also hear the word World Taekwondo Federation, which is now known as World Taekwondo, and they are responsible for sport taekwondo rules and regulations such as the Olympics. It is a subdivision of Cookie One. So Cookie One is the parent organization and World Taekwondo is below it. However, you're going to see them used interchangeably a lot of the time. Other organizations you might know about are the American Taekwondo Association, or ATA, and ITF, which is the International Taekwondo Federation, which, there's a bigger explanation for it, but basically it's like North Korean Taekwondo. Cookie One is the largest organization that is recognized internationally. So it's a pretty good gig if you're a military and you move around a lot so that you can find a Cookie One school. Of course, it's not guaranteed, but it is one of the larger organizations. You can read some other stuff down here, but we're going to move on. Who can issue this Cookie One certification? By 2023, you do need to have an international master certification with Pumdan examiner certification. If you don't know what that means, it basically means there's a special course that Cookie One makes masters take so that they are up to date and able to certify black belts correctly. Of course, Grandmaster Code is a 9th degree. That is the highest rank in Taekwondo. There is a higher rank as 10th degree, but that is awarded posthumously. What that means is you don't get it unless you're 9th degree and have been a really important person in Taekwondo when you die. And then they give it after you die as a big honor. So we're not going to rush that. Of course, I have both certifications as of 2022, so we're both able to certify. You could also test directly with Cookie One, of course, in Korea. That is required for higher ranks, but otherwise, it does require a lot of time and money because you have to travel there, you have to spend money on hotel, you have to spend money on food, etc. It also requires a residency requirement. So if you go to another country, not just Korea, to test from your normal country, you need to live there for at least 6 months. This prevents people from skipping around just to get certified. There were a couple masters that were doing stuff like that. You pay them and then they, let you get the black belt through them. Of course, that's not a good way to get a black belt. So if you do transfer from this school before you earn your black belt, keep in mind that you might have to train under the different master long enough to prove worthiness, not just sit in on the exam. When you test for black belt here, you will receive the official certificate from Cookie One, an ID card, and we'll go over how to submit a good picture for your application for that. You'll also get a certification number, which is the most important part of the certificate and ID card. And that's used to register for future black belts / other world events. And of course, you'll get your black belt, a black belt uniform, and a weapon. The weapons are extra credit, so don't panic if you're not very interested in that, but it is something you get when you test for your different black belts. The uniform, if you don't know already, the black collar is for only black belts. We have black t-shirts and such, but the formal uniform has a black collar for black belts to, symbolize the maturity and wisdom that you've gained over your years of training. Time minimums. There is no technical time minimum for your initial black belt testing. However, the range will be between 2 to 4 years. There are some students that will take longer than that, and that's totally fine. For example, if you started training here at Tiny Tigers at age 3, 2 to 4 years from that is 6 or 7 years old, and you're not going to be ready to test for a black belt at 6 or 7 years old. On the other hand, I had a student in the past who had a black belt in karate, and she was an adult student, and she tested for black belt here in Taekwondo in 1 year. This is also because she trained every day, Monday through Saturday, for 2 to 4 hours. So she would do 2 to 3 classes every day, from Monday through Saturday. That's also why our after school and summer camp students tend to test faster than our evening class students, because of course the evening class students usually take class twice a week versus after school students will train Monday through Friday on top of coming for camp days where they train 2 to 4 hours a day. Once you get your first 3 black belts, you will have to train for 1 year minimum from your certification date. Keep in mind that it's different than your actual testing date. So say you test in June of this year, that you will not be testing in June of next year. You'll be testing in December of next year because it'll take a few months for the certificate to be sent from Korea and verified and processed, etc. Then it increases to 2 at second degree, 3 at third degree, etc., etc. So basically, whatever belt, whatever rank you're at, add half a year. So 1.5 degrees from first degree to second, 2.5 from second to third, etc., etc. And keep in mind, this is a minimum requirement. There are other factors that will affect your eligibility, such as if you take a break, you can't just, quit Taekwondo for a year, come back and say, oh, I'm ready to test for my second degree. And this should be pretty obvious, but I have to say it out loud because I think some people misunderstand. And I like to set the expectations loud and clear, right? So please keep in mind that this time minimum is only one part of your eligibility for black belt testing. Age limitations. There are 2 types of black belts. Dan is the official full black belt, and for first degree, the minimum age is 15 years old. Then 16 for second, following the time minimum requirements. If you're not that age, you have a junior black belt, which is called PUM. So it's not like you don't get a black belt just because you're not old enough. However, you're awarded a PUM black belt to recognize the need for physical development and mental maturity. The requirements for a child is of course going to be different than a young adult versus the requirements for a 60-year-old adult. I don't think you have to worry about that much. Master Co and I will take care of certifying people correctly. However, just keep that in mind. And I think the other question people ask is, does it automatically turn into Dan? And the answer is yes. So say you test for your black belt now at 13 years old, and then you take a break for a few years. I have a lot of parents who might have gotten their black belts when they were teenagers, and they try to come back to training. You do not have to retest for your black belt, although we do recommend that you ease into training and keep your ID number so that you can have proof that you're a black belt, especially if you're not at the same school as before. Your skill and dedication will be more important than how old you are or what your black belt looks like. The black belt exam is not just one day. It's all the days leading up to it. This is usually good news because if you train hard as much as you could leading up to the black belt exam, then you can trust in all those hours that you worked hard before. However, it's bad news if you did not train hard in class and you need to make up for it in one day. Of course, if you're doing that, you're probably not going to even be approved for testing, but just keep that in mind and don't stress out about just the one black belt exam day. Stress out about training hard every day, but not too much. Like I get that this is a very important, big deal, but of course, if you are doing your best in class, you should be fine. We also consider personal improvement. You should still meet the minimum standards. It's not like we let you pass just because you show up and try hard. You do also have to gain some physical skills. But again, we will help you get there if you are willing to put in the work. Testing requirements. You cannot cram for a black belt test. It is not enough just to know what you're doing. I know a lot of people memorize the hand techniques and forms and then they flop around on the mats and say, I'm done practicing after just one time. You need to build up power and stamina over a long period of time to perform with excellence. Think about school. You could probably pass with a C, but no one wants to do that. You want to get A or B, right? This is why this video is required viewing, so that we can manage expectations. Some people think that just memorizing the forms is enough, or some people think that because they're just super good at sparring that they don't have to care about anything else. This is not true. To be a well-balanced black belt, you need to not only know how to spar, but also know your basics, which is your forms, your push-ups, your sit-ups, etc. Note that you may need to put another activity on the back burner in order to fully prepare for your black belt exam. What this means is if you can only come to training once a week because you have dance, football, swimming practice, and tutoring all the other days of the week, and then you say, why can't I test for black belt? Well, you just told me why, because you didn't put enough time into Taekwondo training to actually earn the black belt rank. So that's why we, like I said, make you watch this video well in advance so that you can decide, okay, if I really want to train hard for black belt and test this upcoming test, then maybe I should take a break from soccer just for one season or, whatever else you need to do. Here's a quick requirements overview. So we'll go into detail, but there are class requirements, of course, the physical fitness requirements, your technical requirements, which is your skills, an essay and a multiple choice exam, online registration, and leadership requirement, which means basically you need to be a good leader of this school in order to become a black belt. Black belt prep credits. Starting in December 2023, we are requiring this number of credits for each black belt. You can see here it says there are exceptions. So for example, people who tested during COVID, they probably didn't have the black belt prep sign-in option. We have updated everybody at this point. So starting at brown belt, everyone should have access to black belt prep credits. But of course, we can decide if you don't need quite that many credits. However, if you tested in December 2023 and onwards, you should be able to get the number of credits within the year, 2-year, 3-year time minimum that you guys heard about earlier. As you can see, with each higher rank, there is, of course, more credits required. It's not 20 for each belt because the expectation is that you're going to these higher level black belt prep classes. There are only a few classes that are valid for black belt prep. There's Black Belt Prep, which is an actual class for guys who are testing for Black Belt, where we go over forms in more detail, and it's only for brown belt and up. Sparring class, of course, helps you get ready for Black Belt testing, so that is a option. Although, if you really, really like sparring, I would not recommend that all your Black Belt Prep credits be only sparring. And Black Belt class, which is also available during the adult class and Black Belt class by itself. Like I mentioned earlier, these requirements are not unreasonable, and if you are missing Taekwondo due to doing other activities, then consider later testing dates so that you can get enough black belt prep credits beforehand. You can pause this video and look at the physical requirements. I will not list it out all the way, but basically you have a minute to do push-ups, sit-ups, and we count how many you do. There's 30 minimum for most of our students who are children, and then you can see the rest of them here. We also have a flexibility requirement, and we also do back extensions. Finally, there's also a wall sit portion, which covers your squat and lunge test that we normally do for our color belt exam. But for children, they have to hold it for 2 minutes, and teenager and adult women, they do 2.5, and then most adults will be holding for 3 minutes. A lot of people practice the wall sit the most because I guess it's the most coolest thing to practice. But theoretically, if you're doing hand technique and your forms correctly, you're already doing deep stances and will not necessarily need to practice wall sit. So again, you can pause this video to read this in detail, but we're going to go ahead and move on. Technical requirements. You need to know hand techniques, 1 through 100 for guys testing for the first degree black belt, and etc. here. We check your deep stances and, of course, correct techniques and power. No donuts, please, with your hands. I think most of my students know what that means, but they still do it, so please stop. We also have the kicking techniques, which test your endurance. I forgot to mention this earlier, but there are black belt exams out there that take 2 to 3 days. And we don't feel the need to do that because, again, we believe testing is not just one day, it's also the other days of training that we see you. But there are places where they make you run 5 to 10 miles the first day of testing, then they test sparring, and then they test form. But kicking techniques is one of the ways we kind of test that endurance as well as kicking form. Because, of course, Taekwondo guys are pretty good at kicking. We also have to go through all the pumse. And we are going through the requirements in the order of the exam. So when you come for the exam, we start with our physical fitness test, followed by hand technique, kicking technique, and now we do form. Color belts and black belts, both, all need to know Taeguk Pumse 1 through 8. So Taeguk 1, 2, 3, 4, etc. And they should be done well. The higher belts candidates, the second and third degree, etc. candidates need to know the appropriate black belt forms, which is also known as Pumse. Please keep in mind that you need to do these again correctly and well. Here's the Pumse for the other candidates. And if you note at the bottom here, for my 4th degree candidates, you are considered master rank, and they are now requiring that we send video. You will still test with the rest of the group for the black belt exam in June/December, and then we will take videos separately so that we can get good quality videos to send to Korea. There are also other video requirements, but we can talk about that in person. I don't need to necessarily do this for this video here. Once we do all the forms together, we do have an individual showcase for the form during the exam. You will get to perform one random form that the masters will pick, followed by your best/favorite form. So if you didn't do well earlier doing it with the group, then this is your time to make up by showing off your best form. So please keep in mind that you should practice your forms really well and find your best/favorite form. After form, we will do sparring. And sparring will, of course, measure your timing and distance, as well as your Taekwondo skill level. You should wear full gear if you have it. It is available for purchase through us, or we also have used gear available. The money from the used gear goes to our leadership team. So it's a great cause, / it's a lot cheaper than getting brand new gear, especially if you're a child, you tend to grow pretty fast. So parents, keep that in mind and feel free to donate gear and buy gear from us to support leadership team. You must attend sparring classes to get experience. I know some people say, oh, I can never make it to sparring class. Talk to me and we can figure it out. Please keep in mind that sparring is not something that I can tell you, oh, you need to attend exactly 5 sparring classes and then you'll be good at it. No, it depends on the student. And with each black belt level, of course, you're expected to be better at sparring. So if you're not very good at sparring and you don't like it, then that's actually more reason that you should come to more sparring classes. But we understand after you get your black belt that maybe you'll want to take a break from sparring right away because you did a lot of hard work to get there. But after a while, you do need to get your butt back in sparring because if you want to continue leveling up black belts, then you need to keep coming to sparring class regularly. Not, you don't have to necessarily come every week if you really, really hate it, but you should not be coming once every 2 months and expecting to be good enough to test for your next black belt. When you come to sparring class, you need to arrive 20 to 30 minutes early to gear up and warm up, especially if you're borrowing gear and or you're an older student. So we do have some chest guards available to borrow. It's first come, first serve. And if you borrow gear, please put it back neatly, or I will find you and you will not borrow gear anymore. You'll have to buy it for yourself. For older students, like I mentioned, you might want to come early to warm up because we are starting exactly at the starting time. We are not spending so much time warming up. We expect that students warm up on their own because sparring is an advanced class. Finally, there's the breaking component. First degree candidates have a pretty easy time. You do have to pick 2 hand techniques and 2 kicking techniques of your own choosing, so it's creative. Don't make up a break, but you can pick your favorite breaks, and please don't pick super easy ones. So you can't do 2 hammers and 2 axe kicks. That's way too simple. You need to do two different hand techniques and 2 different kicking techniques. For secondary candidates, you have middle knuckle punch and jumping back kick, which you should be learning in class. But if you realize that you haven't gone over it as much as you'd like because maybe you missed some lessons, then please talk to the instructors about helping you out. Third degree candidates, you have ridge hand and jumping spinning hook kick. And then the master candidates for 4th degree, they will get to do creative breaking as well. But they do need to do something fancier than what they did at 1st degree. We have essay topics for each belt rank. For 1st degree, it is what does a black belt mean to you? And this is in addition to your leadership essay for your leadership stripe. For 2nd degree, it's what's the difference between 1st and 2nd degree black belt? And please don't just put there's another line on my belt or that, oh, I learned a different weapon or a different form. I would like a deeper answer than that. And I think that's pretty obvious to most of my students, but I just like to say that out loud just in case. The 3rd degree candidate essay is a little bit trickier. If you're not sure about how to answer this one, please talk to an instructor and they can help you out. And then 4th degree seems pretty simple, but at the same time, we do expect a deeper answer, especially for guys testing for master rank 4th degree. Essays must be typed and printed or emailed to us. You can also email it to save paper and the environment. If you are a younger student and you don't know how to type, you're going to write it and you're going to ask your parent very nicely to type it up for you. Don't forget to include your name and your current rank, and make sure that you keep all the papers together if you're turning in a physical copy. The length of the essay depends on your age and current rank, of course. If you're testing for a higher degree, we expect a deeper, more thoughtful answer. If you're younger, then, honestly, a page tops for any of these essays is fine, but they have to be well written. So if your child is younger and they handwrite it and it's a whole 2 pages, but by the time you type it, it's only half a page, please don't panic. We just want a well thought out essay and show that you understand what we're asking you. They are due when you turn in your application, which is about a month before the exam date. So please keep an eye on your emails. If you're not very good at checking your emails, then make sure that you're paying attention during class. But honestly, maybe you should just get better at checking emails, because this way you keep on top of everything when your child doesn't remember to tell you at home. We have a multiple choice exam, which is pretty new, but this is because we want to test not only your physical skills, but we also want to make sure you understand the Korean terminology. This is important for when you test later for 3rd and 4th and 5th and 6th degree black belts. I want you to be prepared now rather than not learning any of the Korean words and then trying to test for 4th degree later and not understanding any of the actual Taekwondo words. This is also good because, like I said, this is international certification. No matter where you go, France, Germany, Australia, Canada, they're going to use the same Korean language to describe the moves, while in English it might be different, and in French it might be different, etc., etc. We have practice questions that will be sent out to candidates who we know are close to testing, or you can also click the link below this video, and it has all the black belts stuff you need to study for. And this is an online test that will be released the week of the application. Multiple attempts are allowed to get 70%. So please don't panic too much about this part. I know some people think, oh, I signed up to do Taekwondo, not, for like a history class or a math class. Don't panic. You can retry as many times as you need to get 70%, which is not that high. It's kind of a learning experience too, to encourage people to learn the Korean words and the terminology, as well as understand stuff about the Taekwondo moves we do beyond just how to do it. Understand why we do it, understand the correct way to train for it, etc. There's also a leadership requirement. You are expected to lead by example. So when you're in class, you should be the loudest counter, you should be trying your best, and doing a good job representing our school. You will also be called upon randomly to teach lower belts with a positive attitude. So when I call you over and you're busy talking to your friend, you say, "Yes, ma'am," and get over here and help me teach. This is because it's like a pop quiz. If you don't know the lower belt forms at all times, then when I ask you to help, then I'll find out. When you say, "Oh, I actually don't know how to do this, so I can't teach it." This is required even if you're not officially on leadership team. Of course, there is an official leadership team where you can volunteer to help regularly once you get to bow black belts, so ask about that if you're interested. But teaching is also a way to level up your skills. That's why I believe I'm pretty good at Taekwondo, because I teach it all the time to you guys, and I get asked questions that I don't think about because the students I teach are new to Taekwondo or new to the particular skill, and that forces me to think and understand Taekwondo more deeply. For higher ranks, what I mean is, guys testing for second, third, fourth degree, you do need to know the number of stances in each, or not number of stances, know the stances in each pumse as well as the number of pum. A pum is the move in each form. So each time you say 1 ma'am, 2 ma'am, or 1 sir, 2 sir, please memorize the numbers for each form. You should also be specializing kind of like a major in college. Your pumse, making it more eligible for competition or making it more sharp, sparring team, leadership team, or demo team. Of course, there are people who do more than one, and that's totally fine, but you should be doing something besides just showing up to all belts class. We also require knife techniques, and then for third and fourth degree candidates, they do need to know safe tumbling and hip throw, as well as other self-defense moves. Ask your master or instructor for help on these. And finally, nunchucks and bow staff and eskrima are extra credit for higher belts. So if you don't learn them or are not interested, don't worry about it. But we don't teach weapons until black belt because the expectation is if you don't know how to move your own body, then you probably are not going to be good at moving other stuff around. Online registration. So if you're not very good at technology, you can ask us for help, but please plan ahead. Don't just show up randomly while we're really busy during belt test and try to ask me to help you make a TCON account. This is an online process created by Cookie One, and I have a detailed guide that is included in that black belt exam material link. Read it before you start the process, because I've done it several times, and I made this guide so that you can do it without as many hiccups as possible. Make sure your photo is less than 300 kilobytes and have easy access to your verification email. So when you make the account, it'll say, hey, click on the link in your email to verify your email. And if you don't have access to that, then it's going to be a pain in the butt because it expires. The photo editing sometimes is a little tough. So if you need help with that, again, you can ask for help, but please do it not the day of the application due date. Other requirements for children, they need to know all the belt philosophies and of course demonstrate them. You don't need to write about them, but you need to embody them, of course. It is required for adults too, but I don't like to say that because, the expectation is since you're an adult, you know how to act like one. But if needed, then I will require it for my adult students too, depending on who you are. Of course, you need to know knowledge of basic Taekwondo words. That is part of the multiple choice exam that we talked about earlier. You should be bowing correctly. I had to write that because there are some people who are just being very sloppy bowers in class. And then finally, this is what my parents are most interested in, there's the testing fee. It is $500 for first degree, $700 for second degree, $900 for third degree, $1,200 for fourth, and then $1,500 for fifth. If finances are an issue, please speak with me and we can figure something out. However, knowing this, you can also save ahead of time. So if you know that you want to test soon for black belt, then this is a good time to start saving money up for the exam / making your kid do extra chores to earn money for this exam. Again, that is up to your family to decide. I believe that if they have been training well in class, then hopefully this should not be an issue in terms of whether they quote unquote earned it or not. But of course, like I said, if finances are an issue, you can speak with me. Checklists. In the link below, there's also some quick checklists that you can look at instead of having to rewatch this whole entire video. And then stripes do not cover everything that you need to know. So for high brown belt and bow black belt, of course, black belts don't earn stripes like the tape stripes, but the color belts still do. And you just need to keep in mind that although we do have stripe requirements, they don't cover every single thing you need to know. And often, students forget what each stripe stands for anyway, because at high brown belt, there's 10 stripes, and then bow black belt, there's 13 stripes. So most people just forget what they stand for anyway. Some stuff is not on the checklist, but we expect you to know them. For example, no donut hands, which again should be pretty obvious, but some people still do it. And yeah, the checklist is meant to help you out and give you a good overview over all the things we've gone over in this video. The exam will begin at 10 a.m. on Saturday. It's usually the first Saturday of each month, so please arrive early to warm up. For spectators, family, and friends who are watching, I would recommend you come also that early so you can get a good seat. The entire exam takes about 4 hours, depending on the number of candidates. Sometimes it can be even more than 4 hours, especially if we have a lot of people testing. So please make sure you're training hard in class, that you have enough energy and endurance to survive the whole test. If you make a mistake, you may ask again to try respectfully. And more details are provided close to testing date, but I just wanted to go over this real quick. You are allowed to take pictures and video, but no flash. At this point, if you are currently a black belt, you could probably stop watching here. Thank you for watching the requirements and making sure you're up to date. However, again, if you need some reminding about what a black belt really means, then keep watching. Black belt is not really the end. You know, a lot of people think that, oh, I finally finished black belt and now I can just quit. It's more like the beginning, because now you've finally learned all the basics and you can focus on refining those skills and doing more interesting things. Of course, I will say, I respect you no matter how far you make it in your Taekwondo journey. So even if some of my students don't even make it to yellow belt, they only train for white belt, I still applaud them for coming onto the mats and doing their best. Same applies for guys who quit after black belt. It's been a long journey. You've done your best to get to at least black belt, and then you're moving on to other activities. So I'm not trying to say it's not the end, because I'm trying to shame you into continuing black belt training even if you don't necessarily like Taekwondo. I'm just letting you know that for most people, black belt is the beginning. And now you should keep up your basic skills so that you can do fancy things. Getting your first degree is kind of like graduating high school. It's a big deal. You've worked a lot hard for it, but there's definitely so much more that you can do beyond just graduating high school. Leadership is very important as a black belt. You should lead by example. If you fail to do so, then you are dishonoring all your own efforts, as well as your masters and instructors who took the time to guide you, as well as other people who have supported you, including your family and friends. You can also be a bigger part of the community by helping to teach class. One, as I mentioned earlier, it refreshes your own skills and encourages you to keep up your knowledge so that you don't get embarrassed trying to teach a white belt and messing up. It is also a way of paying it forward. There's, obviously you pay tuition to come here, most of you, but the best way to really, if you feel like you had a great experience and Taekwondo helped out your life, then the best way to pay it back is to pay it forward. and help other people on their Taekwondo journey. And this will help our Taekwondo community become stronger and a more welcoming place for others. Ultimately, it means different things to different people. So some people enjoy it as a sport, some people have it as a career, like me. They do it for their health, for social, for self-defense, whatever it is. Not one reason is more legitimate than the other. So if someone likes it for the sport, you don't need to be like, oh, how dare you? You need to respect that. It's like a traditional martial art, and you should, do more forms even though you really like sparring, etc., etc. Everyone has a different reason. The main goal with any of these is to show good respect. There's good sportsmanship in sports. There's good respect for others in self-defense by only using martial arts for self-defense and not for hurting people, and to strengthen your body, mind, and spirit through Taekwondo. The only reason that is not a good reason to be a black belt is so that you can beat up people. As long as it's not that, you are good to go. After you get your black belt, make sure you keep up all your previous knowledge, but now you have more time to specialize. We, of course, have our leadership team, and that's where you volunteer at least once a week to help with class. It does not count as regular class attendance. So if you normally come twice a week to class and want to do an extra class for leadership, then you could come 3 times a week, but one of them is leadership and your main focus is helping others. Leadership team members are eligible to get letters of recommendation from the masters who supervise you, as well as scholarships, money that we give out for our leadership team members, and of course, possible employment. So if you do a good job, then you can end up becoming an instructor here. You can also participate as a black belt in competitions. You can train with the masters to make your poomsae more sharp for the competition or sparring. And they're a great way to challenge yourself beyond just the small, mat space that we have here. You don't have to go to competition, of course, but it is a good way to challenge yourself if you are interested in that kind of thing. And finally, there's of course our demo team. Everyone really enjoys watching them at our holiday event parties. And we also perform at local schools. And hopefully as we get bigger and better in the future, we can participate in culture fests, in Newport News, and etc. It is a privilege to be on the demo team, and they are expected to represent our school well, both on and off the mats. And if you don't do well with that, then we're going to ask you to leave demo team. But there's a lot of stuff you can do as a black belt. We hope you take advantage of that and continue to increase your skills. Okay, so if you have any questions, please feel free to talk to the instructors in person or send an email. Black belt prep classes are a great time to check in on your progress or black belt class. Thank you again for watching this video and getting up to date on the black belt requirements. And we'll see you on the mat soon.